So I want to have a little bit of a lead into the stuff going on in France because that is that's too sweet to start with. We got to save that one for dessert. The main course, or what I guess I could start with maybe the appetizer, let's say, is More Perfect Union. Probably my favorite news source because they deliver good news sometimes and cover relevant stuff to workers. Uh, this was from 2 days ago. This was briefly after stream that I saw this the other day. Michigan lawmakers have proposed giving tenants the right to repair units while deducting the costs from rent payments. They've also proposed legally protecting the right to form a tenant union and requiring landlords to give notice of future rent increases. So if you're not familiar, in the US, I'm not sure how much this applies to Europe, but certainly in the US and most places, if you're renting an apartment, you don't have the right to repair things that break in the apartment. Um, because of, like, I think the justification behind it is, oh, that's the landlord's job because they own the building, right? Um, and either way, it would financially impact the landlord or something like that. But really what happens is it creates a perverse incentive where obviously landlords want to make the largest profit possible because they are a part of the owning class. So what inevitably happens, this is pretty ubiquitous across the board, is something breaks, something goes wrong in an apartment, somebody wants to do regular maintenance, and they call the landlord about it, and the landlord just keeps kicking the can down the road endlessly, like over and over and over and over. Um, and as a result, like, shit just doesn't get fixed. And it's not good, and it has actually resulted in a lot of apartment buildings kind of going to shit in the United States. You know, there are a lot of places where the apartments have a lot of, like, damage to them. It's kind of flawed conditions on that front, and it's also just really annoying if there's something broken in your apartment that you're living in, and then the landlord who does not live there is like, no, you're not allowed to fix that because that's my responsibility. And also, since it's my responsibility, I get to make the decision to not fix it, right? Like, very annoying. And then, of course, landlords also don't like this bill because it would make those costs deductible from the costs of people's rent, you know? And landlords want that sweet, sweet rent money. So, you know, they don't exactly want to play nice on that front either. Just gonna catch a bunch of Pokemon here. But that's one really big thing. The other big thing is tenants unions. Tenants unions are fucking huge, because it's the same kind of relationship that workers have with their employers, just instead with landlords and the people living in the apartments. It would be a great way to give the working class some sort of collective bargaining power regarding the spaces that they live in, and I'm sure if there's research on tenants unions, I'm sure it would give some information pretty similar to the information that we have regarding workers unions and labor unions and stuff. That it generally increases the quality of life, because if a landlord is being super obstinate or super stingy or even like really cruel, landlords have been known to just evict people on a whim. Then the entire body of tenants can unite and come together and say, look, you're not allowed to evict this one person unless you evict all of us. And, you know, depending on the building, this could be hundreds of people. You know, but either way, that's like, look, if you evict this one person who's struggling, we're going to tear your bottom line to shreds, you know, because we need a place to live. I think it's just a really good way of sort of bringing the power level of people who would otherwise be vulnerable more or less up to par with the power level of landlords, so that people wouldn't, you know, get kicked out of the house for not being able to make rent on any month in particular, because, you know, rent prices are fucking abysmal. They're sky high. Um, And then, of course, giving notice of future rent increases is also good because it gives an opportunity for said tenants unions to come together, unite, and go on strike and be like, hey, now hold on. You announced this, but we're deciding that no, actually, you can't increase this rent. Fuck you, actually. We need to live here, and, you know, we don't make enough to afford that rent increase or something like that. You know, you can't get, like, surprise billed. But as the post mentions, and as I mentioned earlier, this is just a proposed package. If I go look this up on the news, Michigan Tenants Rights Package. CBS reports Michigan lawmakers consider bills that would solidify certain renters' rights. So it hasn't been voted on yet, to my knowledge. God, if this passes, this would make Michigan one of the greatest places in the U.S. for organized labor and organized renters. Would be awesome. I believe I've said this in the past, but I'll say it again. If there's hope for America, it's in the Midwest. You know, the Democratic Party in the Midwestern states is no fucking slouch. They're like, you know, I joke that they're the Leninist vanguard party for how much they fucking hate landlords and support the workers, like, reliably, but... And that's obviously an exaggeration, but they are reliably way more economically progressive than the Democratic parties in any of, like, the northeastern states, except for Vermont, because that's where Bernie Sanders is in charge. Or in charge. He has a Senate seat from there, so. Lawmakers, let's see. William Lawrence, coalition coordinator of The Rent is Too Damn High. No way! They have an active that's so funny. In the United States, there's actually a tiny political party called The Rent is Too Damn High. It's called The Rent is Too Damn High Party. And they've always been like a really tiny bit player in American politics. They're known for the one older black guy that has gone on television and just, you know, talked about the rent is too damn high. And it seems like the Democrats in Michigan are actually working with the Rent is Too Damn High party because the rents are too damn high. That's so fucking funny. Lawrence says, while his organization is supportive of state plans to build more housing supply, renters also need better protections. We need to see regulations that are about directly protecting renters and giving renters more rights to make a home, to stay in their homes, and to hold bad landlords accountable. These bills would help do that. Yeah. Money would be deducted from the rent for repairs that they would then be given the right to do. Bill package will also give tenants in the same building or complex the right to form a tenant union and require notice of future rent increases. The bill package is being met with some opposition from the Rental Property Association, whose executive director said tenants unions don't seem necessary. No way, dude. It's the same fucking thing as big corpos being like, "Oh, we don't need a union. See, we love our workers. We're a family." But this time it's landlords, and it's like even more obvious because whereas like corpos had done a lot of propagandizing throughout the 20th century and, you know, even into the 21st century to endear the corporate form to people. Like, it's kind of crazy the degree to which people thought like private businesses were good, generally speaking, like in the 1980s and 90s. Landlords have had no such luck with persuading the public of their supposedly good intentions. Nobody fucking likes landlords. So to hear the literal association of landlords say, yeah, we don't think you guys need tenants unions. You know, you guys don't need tenants unions. Don't form the tenants unions. We don't like this bill because it would give tenants the rights to form tenant unions. Is very funny. We're concerned on how exactly the unions would work with a union due with a union due a union fee monthly. Man's having a stroke while saying this. And how that would increase the living costs for tenants. Dude, it's the same fucking talking points. I can explain that in a second, but let me get through the quote first. And then how that would work with these individual contracts. said the executive director for the association. We see this as causing potentially more friction among hopefully a really good relationship between the property owner and the resident. Dog. The to be clear, the relationship between the owner of a property and the renter of a property is purely one of exploitation. It is the interest of the renter to pay as little rent as possible for a place to live, and it's the interest of the landlord to exact as much rent as possible from the tenant to make as much profit as possible. The landlord's material interests are to make tenants' lives as miserable as possible, and the tenants' material interests are to make their own lives as easy as possible, right? That's the relationship that these two groups have, because that's how like the material conflicts and economics work. And then now for the we don't believe people should have to pay union dues or union fees. Union dues are just like taxes. It's a distributive thing for one, but then for two, the union dues would be accounted for from any like demands made by the union, if that makes sense. In the workplace, how union dues work, everybody pays into the union dues, and then you get more than that back easily when you get a salary increase, right? Let's say your union dues are like $100 per year, or like $120 per year. That's an even $10 a month, right? Maybe it's more than that, but your salary increase that you would get from being in that union from pitching in just a little bit to help the union grow and maintain its strength and bargaining power is way more. The benefit that you would get from that is way more than the $10 a month that you put into it, because that's just the organizing cost. There are other tools that you have at your disposal that don't require that money. There are dozens of studies proving that like unions only usually bring good outcomes. Like the outcomes that are produced as a result of unions existing are almost entirely preferable to the outcomes produced when unions do not exist. And the same is true of tenants unions, because the relationship is the same. The boss wants to make as much money as possible and pay as little as possible. The landlord wants to make as much money as possible by charging as much as possible. The difference is the boss actually pays you for labor, though it's a fraction of what you're worth. And the landlord provides nothing to society. All they do is extract wealth from you. It's an even more parasitic relationship than the relationship between corporations and workers. Well, let's see. There's another bit of this. Oh yeah, how that would increase the living costs for tenants. Guys, this would not increase the living costs for tenants. What do you think a tenants union would do? It negotiates to bring rents down or keep them at stable levels. The living costs, never mind the whole like offset costs from union negotiations and stuff that I just mentioned, the living costs would increase drastically more if there was no tenants union, because landlords would then have no obstacle to raising the rent. Like I said, this is them just trying to act in their material interests. Tenants unions provide an obstacle to the interests of landlords. So they have every incentive to lie, to make shit up, and to try to discredit the concept of a tenants union at every turn, because all they care about is their bottom line, is the profit. Right? And of course, the union threatens that by virtue of giving tenants collective bargaining power. If they are successful in a strike or in a series of negotiations, they could potentially bring rents down, which makes tenants' lives cheaper and landlords' lives just a little bit more expensive. And that's why they're saying this. The living costs that the tenants or that the landlords are referring to is their own doing. When they say, "Oh, this could result in increased living costs for the renters," that's a threat. That's them saying, "Hey, if you do this, we're just going to jack the rents up a shit ton," which is like basically creating the conditions for a strike to take place. I think that's all I've got for this. Tenants unions are base, landlords are fucking cringe. Uh, and you know, it's pretty predictable that they're resorting to the same kind of talking points that somebody like Amazon would resort to when they're, you know, concerned about workers unions. In fact, let me see if I can find a study right now. Tenants union study. Tenants union research. There we go. Research study or something. Here we go. Look at this. Can tenants unions challenge neoliberal housing governance? The emergence of a new movement in Spain and its impact on post-neoliberal housing policy. This is in Spain, but, you know, the same general economic rules apply basically everywhere. This paper analyzes how tenants organizations approach the state for post-neoliberal housing policy that challenges decades of neoliberal housing governance. It introduces the concept of counter-hegemonic and hegemonic legislative strategies to illustrate how tenants movements in Spain have achieved this policy shift by influencing legislative changes. In contrast to traditional lobbying or representation-focused movements, unions aim to organize tenants offensively against the commodification of housing and capitalist relations, positioning themselves as counter-hegemonic forces. The paper outlines 3 mechanisms used to achieve this: turning tenant evictions and landlord threats into acts of civil disobedience, that's the strikes I was talking about, using the media strategically to shape narratives, and exploiting institutional windows of opportunity through alliances and political crises. While the legislative victories gained by these unions may fall short of their full demands, the paper emphasizes that their impact goes beyond political outcomes. Their activities contribute to contesting neoliberal housing trajectories, disrupting hegemonic governance, and reshaping the political landscape. Yeah, so there's a mass power element to this that, like, when people are organized, you get media attention, and that gives you the opportunity to shape narratives. Anyways, I got really passionate about that, and I am really passionate about that because affordable housing is one of my new reading kicks lately, and part of the reason that housing isn't affordable is because landlords have been able to historically increase rent with no consequence. Especially, you know, right now, like, it's the rent is as high as it's literally ever been in the United States. And tenants are struggling. So these tenants unions are sorely needed. And, you know, I guess this bit of research at the very least, it didn't take me very long to find that either, corroborates that and says that, like, yeah, you know, tenants unions have an opportunity to pose a real counterweight to the interests of landlords because these are competing interests. But anyways, to wrap it all up, good things are possible. Of course, it's from the Midwest, where all the good shit seems to be happening in the U.S. as of late. And good luck to the tenants out there. Hope they get their tenants' rights package. We'll see if we'll see if it passes. If the Democrats vote, excuse me, if the Democrats vote on, like, party lines, then it should pass because I think the Democrats control both chambers of the legislature in Michigan, and obviously there's a Democratic governor there as well. Gesundheit, thank you very much. Yeah, you know, fuck landlords. I think that's a note that we can all safely end it on. We can all walk away saying, you know, fuck them landlords. Future me, if that's a segment, please cut it there.